Greetings, metallurgists. Marty Worm back again. This time we're going to try to discuss and decipher a message that we have received deep from interstellar space in the form of a nebulous black metal industrial album. Stick around. Let's get to the bottom of this. I am here today to discuss the fifth full-length album by Switzerland's Darkspace. The name of this album is -2, and it's coming out on February 16th, 2024 on Season of Mist Records. For those of you who are unaware, Darkspace is a mysterious band from Switzerland that focuses on predominantly black metal, but with an industrial tinge to it. The albums before it all have very nondescript. I don't know if that's a star chart, what that is exactly, but all these are very nondescript. And the new album -2 is also very nondescript in its appearance, and but what it may lack in visual appearance, it picks up big time in sonic density and imagination and patience. Very much a very patient album we're about to embark upon here. But it has been 10 years since the last Darkspace release. So in case you've forgotten about them, they're back. And they've had one lineup change since then. How has it changed the musical scope? But before I get into that, I do want to talk first and foremost about the production of this record. This is a very murky sounding album, and I would say that it does sound like indeed a space transmission. It's very dark. There's a suffocating sound about this that, yeah, you could put this on in the background and work or do something or clean the house. But I found the most impactful way of listening to this album has been with headphones, repeatedly with headphones. Musically, these early albums, before I got into digging into this record, it was good to sit down and refamiliarize myself with them. And yes, Darkspace always has had a mechanical vibe to them. Think maybe a more highbrow version of the first Mysticum album. But the main musical focus has always been black metal, with industrial flourishes here and there. On this new album, -2, it seems like the script has been flipped a bit. This is I take it as a very industrial album. It's got a very mechanized foundation. It's got an endless loop that runs through the song, which I'm going to get into here in a minute. It's has a cold essence to it, which is kind of the heart, the birthright of industrial. And it takes many, many listens to get into this. For me, first impression, if I were just going to put this on and try to pass judgment on it after one spin, it's not fair. It's not fair to do that, because if you go into it expecting, air guitar riffs or, obvious orthodox black metal riffing, you're going to be disappointed. And it isn't until I started, okay, I have to review this, I have to start listening to this, put on the headphones, immersed myself in the record 4 or 5 times, it started to unveil itself as a very dark, mystical, lost in space type of distress signal or a nightmare or whatever you want to call it. It's that dark, it's that mystical. But before I get into the breakdown of the album, the mechanics of it, it's one track. The name of the track is apparently Dark -2.2. It is a 47-minute long album / song. The song, there are movements in this which I have tried to pick out of I tried to establish movements that I could hear within the song. So Yes, it's one long track that revisits themes throughout. It never stops. It's always flowing, always moving forward until it takes you to the very end. But okay, we got through the production, we got through the schematics. Let's get into the song itself. As I stated, this album is broken up into a number of movements, 5, I believe. This could be my perception of it, but we're going to start with part 1, which is 0 minutes to 10 minutes 47 seconds. There's a drifting atmosphere with haunting effects that swell and subside. A simple crunch riff builds over industrial percussion or a drum machine / computer, however you want to break that down. Vocal sample of a woman speaking peers through the darkness to further mystify. This is a baseline formula that will continue to be the capsule for this entire song to unfold. You're always going to hear that woman in the background. It sounds like she's reciting something. She's reading something. I can't quite tell if it's in another language other than English. But very industrial intro to this song. First movement. That ends around the 10 minute, 47 second mark. Second movement, part 2. It goes from 10 minutes to about 17 minutes, 41 seconds. Harsh black metal styled vocals crackle to life off in the distance of this mix, just emerging out of the din enough to be comprehended. The veiled and tortured nature of the vocals give this piece a sense of nightmares made reality. Musical layers gradually stack upon the industrial foundation. More predominant synth lines, more evolved chord progressions. The build is as subtle as it is suffocating. It reaches an impactful crescendo at the 17 minute 41 second mark. Which then takes us into the next movement, the third movement, part 3. 17 minutes, 41 seconds to about 22-ish minutes. Layers erode away after the crescendo, taking us back to the barren atmosphere established at the song's beginning. Despondent synth lines swirl around the indecipherable vocal sample of a woman reciting something, as I mentioned earlier, which is on perpetual loop throughout this entire track. A minor piano synth line emerges out of the darkness. That takes us into the fourth movement, about the 22-minute mark to the 33-minute mark. With a more established electronic drum beat, along with a stable synth line, the track builds once again. Guitars exist just below the surface, as if they are eclipsed by the synth layers. Vocals arise, sounding even more cryptic than before. This is very similar to the song's second movement, with the same chord progression and endless, unsettling vibe. After a brief hesitation, all the layers kick back in with a harsher vocal line for a very jarring impact. Kind of wakes you out of the trance. Which brings us to the fifth movement, which is the fifth and final movement. It goes about from 33 minutes to the very end of the song. We once again have that vocal sample loop and synth background at the very foundation of the track. Guitars emerge from deep space and the mix to expand upon the simplistic crunch riff found at the song's inception. Darkspace have continued to revisit predominant segments of this song to establish some sort of a structure, while augmenting little things above and below the mix, such as a new guitar melody line, to keep your subconscious focused on the sonic hypnotism. And that is one thing. This album is very hypnotic. Again, headphones loudly, it definitely takes you to another plane. Once again, all metal and electronic elements rise beneath the ghastly vocal lines to carry us to the end of Dark -2.2. I was fully enamored by the orchestration and abysmal journey this project just took me on. It was so immersive. I felt about the midway point like I was just kind of sucked into the capsule of this song. Okay, let's get to the very ending. And all the layers are stripped away one by one until there's nothing but the silent vacuum of space. And that brings it to the end. Final thoughts on this album. This was, again, a grower album, which, as we all know, is typically the sign of a good album. If you listen to something right away and love it, what new elements are going to unfold for you years down the road, weeks, if not years down the road? Probably not a lot. An album like this, Darkspace, -2, is it's one of those albums set to unlock all sorts of things as the years go on, if you choose to listen to it. Having said that, this isn't an album I'm going to reach for a lot. I do like it. I think it's quite interesting. I found it to be quite hypnotic, as I mentioned earlier in the review. Is it one I'm going to reach for often? Probably not. This is definitely a mood album for me. It's more industrial than metal. Again, I don't mind that. I like industrial music as well. But it's one of those special albums that you need to invest time with and actually focus on. Background, it's just going to sound like the same chord progression for 47 minutes. It isn't until you block out reality, put on the headphones, isolate yourself in the moment of this album, that all these layers, whether it's a synth line or a guitar harmony that comes in and out, the vocals, how they use so much restraint in using them, so when they finally do use them, there's more of an impact. There's a lot that went into this record. Again, a lot of patience, a lot of building, the building up and tearing down of matter, so to speak. And it ended up being a very, very effective album. Is it a world rocker, an air guitar album? Definitely not. And if that's what you're looking for in black metal, you're going to want to look to something a little bit more traditional, a little more orthodox. It's a very experimental record. It's a very good record, and I highly recommend it if you're the right person for it. If you know going in that you're going to be bothered by a more avant-garde type of listen, if you're into bands like Blue Dust Nord or Paysage de Verre or Deathspell Omega, this might be the album for you. Is it as complex and busy as a couple of those bands I just mentioned? No, it's not. Again, a lot of very simple lines, a lot of dense layers, a very murky, somber listen. If you're into that kind of thing, this album is for you. If not, look elsewhere. But yeah, that's it. And it was a good experience, and it's an album that I will return to on occasion for sure. And yeah, that's it. Thanks a bunch. And for everybody, we had a bunch of new subscribers. Thank you for that. If you enjoyed this review, we're doing them every week, and we have an awesome staff of people doing them with us. So check out Heavy Metallurgy playlists for more reviews. We've got weekly programs as well on Wednesday Album Club and the Friday normal streams. Lots to check out. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time on Heavy Metallurgy.